Welcome to the replay of our Green Drinks July 2021 event, all about battery storage technologies. We welcomed Miss Cuckwin James Harper from NR Store, along with Mahmoud Shirazi from Kologi Solutions. Enjoy this replay.
All right, so we're a little past time, so we'll get rolling. I want to welcome everybody to Virtual Green Drinks July. And for those of you who don't know me, I am Nick Hebb with SmartNet Alliance. The Alliance is a group of businesses and organizations who collaborate on initiatives and projects to help accelerate Canada's transition to a sustainable economy. For more information on SmartNet Alliance, please consult our website, and I'll put a link into chat shortly. Be sure to check out our brand new membership pages on our website to learn more about all the great work our members are doing. And I'll put a link for that in the chat box as well. So tonight we're going to be featuring battery technologies. I know everybody's curious as to know what's going on. And you know, there's so many great Canadian startups and companies that are working in the space, doing incredible work. So we're going to feature two of them. And we've also got, I think JP from EV Fernback is going to be, EV Fern is going to be jumping on, one of our members who works in the battery space as well. So first up, we welcome Miss Cuckwin James Harper, who is working as a development analyst at NR Store Canada, Inc. Canada. It's a Canadian energy storage developer. James will be discussing how innovative partnerships are shaping the battery storage field. He will show how leveraging partnerships can lead to greater benefits and success, which is important in how we reimagine our grid of our future. Following James, we've got Mahmoud Shirazi from Kologi Solutions, based in Sherbrooke, Quebec. And he'll be chatting about how Kologi is designing thermal management technology to combat EV performance issues in colder weather. Okay, they have been named as one of the 5 finalists of Impact Canada's Charging the Future Challenge, which is focused on advancing battery technology for electric vehicles and other applications. Following that, we'll open things up to our SmartNet Alliance members. I think we've got a couple on the call. Hopefully JP is going to be around to talk a little bit about EV Fern, and they're a local battery company. Time pending, at the end of the call, between 8 and 8:30, we'll open things up for some follow-up questions and a bit of a general discussion on where we think we can take battery technology. So for right now, everybody's muted, but for that portion, we can unmute and allow people to do follow-up questions. During the presentations, if you've got any questions, please add them into chat, and I'll quarterback them over to the speakers after their presentations. So without further ado, let's bring on Miss Cuckwin James Harper, and he is from Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation in Treaty 8, Alberta. He is currently serving as development analyst at NR Store Inc., a Canadian energy storage developer. He graduated from the University of Manitoba with a Bachelor's of Science in Mechanical Engineering and has recently completed a Master's of Science in Renewable Energy from KTH Royal Institute of Technology and École Polytechnique. He loves his family and his community now and generations ahead, which inspires him to work on energy storage and renewable energy projects to build a future that is sustainable and empowers all. So thanks so much and welcome. Let's bring on James. You'll have to unmute yourself, James, and you can go ahead and share your screen. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having me. Get this PowerPoint up here. One sec here. Okay. Yes. Perfect.
Thanks.
Sorry?
Yeah, we're seeing that. That looks great. Thanks for being here.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. So thank you, Nick, for the wonderful introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Cuckwin James Harper, and talking to you all today about grid energy storage and the exciting work that we are up to here at NR Store. I see that Annette is here too. Perhaps I'll if it's okay, Nick, if I can just yield a little bit of some time just to introduce Annette, who is the CEO of NR Store. I see that she's here.
Absolutely.
Hi, James. I'm here.
Nice. Yes. NR Store, I'll do a little introduction on what we're up to, along with a little bit about my story, And then we're talking about energy storage and basically what that looks like in implementation. We'll talk about batteries. This is why we're all here and what makes the magic happen. And then we'll talk about Oneida. And then finally, we'll wrap it up with why energy storage is so important and what further work is still needed in the battery sector. So we already had a fabulous introduction. Thanks again, Nick, there. Basically, my name is Mr. James Harper, and I'm joining you here from Treaty 1 territory in Winnipeg. And I'm originally from Sturgeon Lake Nation in Northern Alberta, Treaty territory. You can see a little mini CV there, but basically, I'm very motivated about clean energy projects across Canada. I see them as something that's very aligned with a lot of the teachings that I was given growing up from my family. And more so, I also recognize them now as key pieces to an overall economic reconciliation in general with Indigenous peoples across Canada. There's so many exciting opportunities that clean energy offers. I can pretty much write a whole book about it, but basically it's why I'm here, and this is why I really enjoy the work that I do. And so speaking about the work that I do at Enerstore, so started about, I believe, 2012, we're a Toronto-based energy storage development company. And basically, we're committed to working with a variety of partners on creating value of, realizing the value of energy storage. And basically, our business is divided into three main segments. Our utilities, which is the main one I'll be talking to you about today. But we also have a microgrid business unit that is dedicated towards establishing clean energy projects in remote communities across Canada. And finally, we have a distributed and residential segment through our organization Empower, which I'll also briefly introduce later on in the presentation. But basically, Enerstore, our vision is to be the leading profit with purpose energy storage developer. And we will do this by developing, owning, and operating energy storage projects in partnership with progressive stakeholders and technology providers. Going further into this, Enerstore, I've joined about a year ago now, but from what I gather from the stories and everything like this, as you can also see by this chart in the United States, energy storage in general has been slow going. However, just recently, and just in a matter of the last 5, even 3 years, energy storage projects have exploded in potential. And the forecast is showing that there's even further growth, even further interest, and it couldn't be more of an exciting time to be in this space than now. So that being said, grid energy storage in general has been around for a long time, most notably pumped hydro. That comes with its own challenges, but basically grid energy storage, we rely on these important assets in our power systems to balance, to provide flexibility, to provide resilience, and so much more. A lot of the status quo, when we don't have pumped hydro, we sort of rely on peaking plants that usually tend to be natural gas powered. And with those plants, it's typically a little bit more expensive to operate, and they obviously have the greenhouse gas emissions, not only directly from the peaking energy that they provide, but also the idle time that they sit awaiting to be used on the grid as well. So the challenge now with the current climate situation, as well as increasing renewable energy integration into our grid, we want greater flexibility and assets to cover those needs without the carbon intensity, and also value savings for ultimately the ratepayer. And so at EnerStore, we are technology agnostic. We're as you know, being founded on partnerships first. We also recognize that with every single project comes a very unique solution, and so we don't like to just blanket, the solution across, all of the potential projects that are in front of us. In fact, we also already have a very established diverse portfolio in different technologies. Through this graph, however, through this chart, we can see that lithium-ion batteries, as they mature, begin to become the most versatile technology. And you can see here, grid technology, again, grid energy storage technology, the dependence on the power, mostly on the power and the duration, also on a variety of other factors, of course, but those being the predominant technical ones. So lithium ion, as the technology becomes more mature and understood, we're seeing lithium ion gradually creep into the grid energy storage space. And again, marking a very exciting time for that technology. So just highlighting there the grid energy storage piece. I don't want to get into too much of the technical details, but I do want to also emphasize that technologies have their own advantages and disadvantages. For example, we can see here that lithium ion indeed has the greatest round trip efficiency. We're talking very minimal losses. However, the maximum number of cycles of a lifetime is a little bit more constrained than most technologies. So again, the solution is, that is intended for this particular application is very dependent on what's in front of us and what the constraints and limitations are. To illustrate a little bit more on the value that storage provides, let's consider a small grid, a microgrid of wind, solar, diesel, and storage. Here, let's look at the demand curve of this small grid. And you can see that it follows a pretty nice daily cycle with the evening lows and the day peaks, sort of the evening peaks, which is an interesting characteristic. Now let's plug in our wind and solar at these capacities. And we could see here that, well, it's completely not aligned with when supply and demand are not aligned. And we can see here that wind most certainly takes off in the evening times mostly. And we see a lot of the vast of the daytime actually not being met at all. So this means that we need to obviously minimize the curtailment of the clean energy and also put that clean energy, make sure that it's utilized. So then comes storage, which you can see highlighted in blue, and sort of the green, the faded green, I don't know if you could see that, but in the background, the faded green is what energy could have been curtailed, but is then utilized in the storage. You do see the diesel in there, by the way, as well, contributing in the mix. And this is one of the limitations that we're currently at an economic standpoint on the maximum amount of renewable penetration we can achieve right now. Of course, the goal is to be 100%. But in this application, of course, the storage being an essential piece to that renewable energy integration, and further as economics improve, getting closer to that 100% clean energy. Another illustration on frequency regulation, consider a tub of water that has an inflow and an outflow. When we have more flow coming in than leaving, we see that the water level rises. And this is where frequency comes in, because we want that level. This is analogous to basically having the water level always at the same level, which is that in the electricity world, 60 hertz. We always want the 60 hertz on our grid. And if that water level changes, then that has a lot of negative impact on our grid, electrically speaking wise. So when we have a storage device, as you can see, we allow some of that excess water or that excess electricity to be stored. And then when there is too much being left out of the tank and not enough being put in, we can use that storage device to top up and keep that water level consistent at 60. In the real world, this is a very complicated thing to manage. The frequency actually changes quite a lot and over milliseconds. So it's a little bit trickier to balance in real world, but lithium-ion technologies have been proven to provide this service. And this frequency regulation is very important because, again, for grid flexibility, keeping at that 60 hertz is very, very important to make sure that basically everything is working as it should be. So I only named two grid services. Here we have a whole graph of all of the potential grid services that energy storage can provide. This is our favorite graph here, but basically you can see that on top of all the services, there's also specific sort of segment groups that targeted those that take advantage of those services. And so I just want to also highlight that energy storage capturing all these value streams is very dependent on two things. It's dependent on the technology itself, the capabilities of that technology, can it perform these services or not? But it's also dependent on the market, and it's dependent on the policies and the system flexibility to bear with these new technologies as well. And I want to emphasize that too, because we're seeing in a slower pace than we want, but still progress for many utilities across North America, that for grid operators, they're slowly progressing towards realizing what that value looks like and capturing it with storage as policies and pricing and markets change. So that's another element of the work that we're doing, is making sure that value is captured, basically, because at the end of the day, lower carbon emissions and ratepayer savings is what energy storage can provide, again, through these services. So talking about lithium ion, which is why we're all here, I suppose. Lithium ion, again, as it rapidly continues to improve, we noticed that the chemistries involved also have greatly improved. I just want to highlight, for example, the lithium iron phosphate, the LFP, is becoming more of a common chemistry. And at a cell level, the chemistries have been improving quite a lot. But even at an integration level, we're talking about cell packs, we're talking about cell modules, even those have been improving as well. And mass scaling the manufacturing as well has also greatly improved. Lithium-ion batteries have a whole host of advantages over other cell chemistries that are listed here. And there are some caveats, and I'll mention that at the end. So, and demonstrating this, of course, we see that the dollar per cell has, the cost per cell has been falling drastically. This is showing, quite a substantial fall. And then on the figure on the right, we're seeing that the need for batteries is very high in the next coming decade. And again, as we want to pursue cleaner transport, cleaner grids, this essentially makes sense. We're also seeing that storage costs have been coming down in general. This slide is here to illustrate from Lazard's levelized cost of storage. This is to illustrate that certain applications have different costs associated with them, and thereby capturing the right amount of value on the other side in terms of revenue. And we can see here that the wholesale sort of storage solutions are on an energy basis are quite competitive and increasingly more competitive as the technologies improve. So I was talking to you about the value creation and the many different kinds of value that energy storage. I already illustrated renewable energy integration and frequency regulation. You can basically, with storage, the other cool thing about it is that you can stack those revenue streams on top of each other with the same grid assets. and create basically a great business case of revenue, as so much as those values are captured. We can see in this case study for a battery energy storage system for a building. On the figure on the right, you can see that value stack is illustrated there through demand charge reduction, resource adequacy, spinning reserve, and regulation. And then the bar on the right shows the cost. So the net being, of course, the business case is very promising. Even more so not even at a utility scale, but on a distributed scale, at a residential scale, aggregating a collection of smaller storage units, such as the Tesla Powerwall, has great potential as well. We can see here from McKinsey that not only are the savings great for the consumer, but also they can be passed on through the utility as well. And basically there's a net benefit to everybody through an aggregated sort of distributed energy resource. And this is kind of the exciting work that I mentioned before with Empower that is happening there as well. So the main star that Enerstar we've been very busy on establishing, trying to get off, take off basically. Oneida Energy Storage is basically a 250 megawatt, 1,000 megawatt hour battery energy storage system. And we're currently partnered with the Six Nations of the Grand River Development Corporation. And well, the project is also sited near their territory in Ontario. And basically it has all those great, wonderful features, all those great value streams that we're capturing through the project that we will be capturing once built. We also have a great partnership, a strong partnership with the Canadian Infrastructure Bank to get this off the ground. And of course, being very near and dear to my heart is about the partnership and how this project itself represents a first of a kind, sort of a leading and innovative way at how meaningful partnerships really look like with Indigenous communities. Not only that, but also putting us on the map and really being a leader in this space. Speaking of being put on the map, this is a first of a kind project for Canada. You know, there's a whole thing, another book I can write about all the great things about Oneida, but one of them is being Canada's first sort of very large energy storage project across the world. You can see several other sites listed there across the world that have yet to be installed as well. And the 1,000 megawatt hours, you know, that's not a common number that we see there. So this facility will definitely be something that is very innovative and progressive, and hopefully a key milestone on getting more similar projects off the ground in the near future. So one of the final things it would be very, you know, I want to give a good comprehensive look as well on battery energy storage. I talked to y'all all about the advantages. There are still some major work that is in front of us to make sure that we're doing this sustainably and equitably. Here you can see in the figure on the right from the Institute, International Institute, IISD Sustainability Institute, that basically over the map you can see the size of the circles represent the mining potential of the green critical materials, nickel, cobalt, magnesium, and so forth. And you can see that there's, especially as it might be well known with the cobalt sort of mining issues, we want to make sure that our supply chains are sustainable and as equitable as possible. And so we want to make sure that that's taken care of. But we also want to take care of the material handling itself and create a circular economy through lithium-ion battery recycling. And there's a great startup, also, I believe, Ontario-based Life Cycle, that is using very promising technologies on making sure that the material recovery is very, very high. Because again, we want to reduce that mining intensity for new materials while also being conscious of the great amount of lithium that is needed for the clean energy shift. And so speaking of clean energy shift, I believe this is my last slide. Why is this so important? Well, on top of grid resiliency, on top of, flexibility and renewable integration and all that, I'm very passionate about trying to meet the 2-degree target. I'm very optimistic. I know that there's a lot of reports these days that say otherwise, but I'm committed, and this is why I do the work. But in order to do so, we see here that the International Energy Agency highlights the importance of batteries in our grid compared to now, 2020. You can see there versus 2050 in the net zero emission scenario. We phase out coal, we phase out natural gas, but coming in, we need batteries, and we need a lot of them to meet that net zero emission target for that 2-degree target. So again, an Oneida project is projected to save 4.1 million tons of carbon emissions throughout its lifetime, which is about 40,000 cars off the road in Ontario. So that to me already is a great milestone, a great feat. Yet another advantage that I'll add into the book of why Oneida is so great. Anyways, so thank you for sparing me your time on explaining what we're up to here at NSR. I'm very, very delighted to be working here, and it's delighted to be sharing the great work that we're currently doing, but it's also that is ahead of us. Thank you. Hi.
Yeah, thanks so much, James. Fabulous presentation. Great to hear about the amazing work you're doing there with NR Store. And yeah, fabulous about that Oneida project. That's something at SmartNet Alliance we focus on as well, is collaborations and partnerships, and really being able to move the dial on different renewable energies and technologies. It's really all about those partnerships. So, congrats on that. We do have a few questions. I also had a couple questions for you. I invite everyone to add any questions into chat at this point if you wanted to go through. So Luca was wondering, how fast does frequency regulation actually have to be? I heard that batteries can change flow direction in under a second. Is that fast enough? Or would you have to smooth out that second with capacitors or something near instantaneous?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm not an expert, by the way, on their actual performance there, but I will say that batteries have the capability for frequency regulation without the need. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. Look, in terms of frequency regulation, in terms of flywheel technology, the sweet spot's about 15 minutes, and it's in a nanosecond that it responds, right? And battery technology is extraordinarily fast compared to a traditional generation. A gas plant can take an hour or two to start up. These are immediate, and they act in the same way as anything that you use in terms of battery technology. So it is sufficient for the services we're providing. But as James talks about, every situation is unique, and what's unique about Oneida is that we curtail wind in Ontario. We slow down the hydro supply. We restrict it. We even, slow down the nuclear because we don't have the capacity to store electrons to when they're needed. So matching that supply and demand is a really exciting opportunity. And look, there are all kinds of technologies out there that I think will contribute to energy storage. I think today lithium ion is the most cost effective, but when I started the company in 2012, it was a crazy amount of money to build a facility. Now it's more competitive than gas generation. So it's really come a long way fast. And as pointed out by James, the growth is phenomenal. And so this is a very bold project in our country. And the other thing I want to emphasize is is our partnership with the Indigenous peoples. We really believe this is our mission, to really become a genuine partner. And we really recognize number 92 of the recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and that is to really build partnerships. So we started working with Matt Jameson and his team 3 years ago on this project. Every major decision we made together. And this is unique. This is different. And you know, we're working with the community to help the teachers and the technical institutions to prepare the kids for the jobs that will come out of a project like this. And so, again, we see that true partnership and the benefits going to the Indigenous community, and also within our store. We you know, we believe in profit, but we also believe in making sure it's purposeful. And so but look, this battery technology is pretty fast, and it does the job in terms of what we need the system to respond it to. And it makes the whole grid much more efficient. You can imagine. I mean, you know, when I built out Home Depot, there were all these 160 stores, and if I didn't have the warehouses to facilitate, you know, much better and more efficient distribution of that product, you know, I would not have been as successful. And so, you know, we're pretty good at doing, you know, storing products and water and other things, but we haven't been as good in electricity. And so I think this is the big new frontier. This is where all the big assets are going to come in terms of the grid electricity. And then it's not only at the grid level, it's all across the whole supply chain of electricity.
Yeah, thanks so much, Annette. Definitely agree, and great to hear about the work that you're doing. And yeah, David Wilson also had a question on that. He's wondering, maybe he's got a naive understanding of flow batteries, but can't they scale on the volume of electrolyte into grid storage?
Yes, they can, and flow batteries is something that we're really interested in, Dave Wilson, but they're costly still. So it's still the economics of getting them there. But those flow batteries have long duration, really exciting, you know, opportunity. And we are agnostic, as you know, so we want to introduce the technology when it's commercial and expand into other technologies as we see them develop. So absolutely, full batteries are very exciting.
Great. One thing that really caught my eye during your presentation there, James, or my ears, I guess, is where you were saying the market can kind of help with the innovation in batteries. So maybe you can dive a little deeper into that. In what ways can the market help spur battery innovation?
Yeah. Sorry, could you be a little bit more, could you rephrase the question?
Yeah, so just wondering, you know, you were talking about the market kind of helping batteries innovate and that being an important part of it. So I'm just wondering, you know, is that sort of on a larger scale? Is it people in their homes deciding to put batteries in? Is it companies going towards that? Is it people driving electric vehicles more? What are the different market signs and different ways that the market's going to kind of help that innovation?
Okay, yeah. Well, for sure, I believe that the push for battery technology sort of being accelerated towards like being more economical and having continued greater performance has been really pushed by EVs, the need for EVs. But even at a consumer level, the battery technology for personal devices has also exploded. And so with that being said, it has facilitated for example, the manufacturing capabilities to massively manufacture a lot of these lithium-ion batteries, and thereby also having created capacity to look into grid energy storage as well. So in the grid energy storage market itself, we're seeing that several utilities across North America are definitely keen on seeing what lithium-ion technologies can do for them. And again, that's where the market also comes into play. Is as soon as the policies and the regulation and the pricing change around valuing the services that grid can provide, that only increases the acceleration of the technology to improve even more. So I would say definitely, like, the market push, I would say initially, at least from my opinion, has started from that EV push, from the personal devices push, but has now also evolved into a grid energy storage market as well, and that's very exciting.
Yeah, no, it's great to see people sort of putting these in their homes and obviously driving these and seeing the market grow. Annette, did you have a couple words on that?
Yeah, look, the market is evolving. And so steel makers, for instance, fossil fuel contributors to they're moving towards electric arcs. And, Algoma made that announcement today because they're competing against Europeans and other starting to produce steel in a much more sustainable and lower carbon footprint way. So the market is really, EV is really, I think, started it. But I think that all industries are really taking a look at ESG today and looking at their sustainability and how their product and service is going to be sustainable. And if you don't start recognizing that the environment and the contribution your company and your products and services can make to the reduction of the greenhouse gases and other products. I mean, greenhouse gases is just one component of the challenges we have in our world today. But I just think this is going to become a really important market driver. And in 2012, we started this company. No one even knew about energy storage. It was an unknown, and it's just amazing what's happened sort of in 10 years. And so the market is finally being created, and we're not pushing so hard. When this deal that we're doing with Oneida, we demonstrated to the independent electrical operator in Ontario the enormous savings and benefits of this facility. And we did it through third parties, right? And so people are seeing the performance of these products. They're seeing the push from the customer. And, I just think we're coming to our happy place in terms of great execution. And like James, I believe that, humankind are pretty innovative and can really figure out how to move the world forward. And so I've got a great deal of confidence. It's going to accelerate really aggressively in the next 15, 20 years. We have no choice. We really don't have any choice.
Yeah, no, that's a fabulous message, Annette, and really, really glad that you guys are in there fighting that fight, and good for you for having the faith to start your business and watch it grow. And I'm sure there's times where you could probably pull your hair out, but you were able stick with it, and I think that's something to be said for Canadian ingenuity and startups and things like that. So that's great. So tell us a little bit about what we can expect from NR Store. What's coming down the pike in the next 5-10 years? Any other projects that we should keep our eyes out for?
And James, why don't you talk to them about our approach to remote communities?
Yeah, basically mentioning about our work with the hamlet of Arviat, trying to progress that project to move forward and establishing a wind solar storage solution there. But from there, we want to take the lessons learned through that project and basically apply it to a lot of other remote and Indigenous communities across the country.
Yeah.
With a very important focus on that partnership piece again, and really building the capacity within the community on how to develop projects like this, how to operate them, and providing opportunities for employment and contracting and so forth. I think I'm very, very passionate. It's very close to my heart. Seeing such projects take off in communities, and for that energy to essentially be clean and to be community owned and led. So that's just one of the things that we can definitely be excited and anticipate from our organization.
And so we see other opportunities in big energy storage associated with the grids across the country and quite frankly beyond. And we also see, we distribute the Tesla Powerwall, and it's amazing what's happening there. There is a market for residential people that want to become more resilient and integrate solar and other renewable energy. But I'll tell you what's happening is that the utilities are seeing that these batteries aggregated can really help in a resiliency situation, the weather patterns that are happening around Canada today. And utilities are seeing, that distribution of energy and energy generation and management really making a difference. So there's just so much innovation happening in this sector in this area, and really understanding the benefits of how to make our communities more adaptive and resilient to the challenges we have out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, ground source heat pumps. Look, there's so much out there. There really is. And what's exciting is it's everybody's going at it. And you know what? There's not one silver bullet anybody. That's bullshit. We need to be attacking on many, many different fronts, and we are. And so Canada is one of the clean tech leaders in the world. And it's amazing what's happening all around the country to move the needle here.
Yeah, and we featured a lot of those technologies on our virtual green drinks here, from pumps to mass timber to solar. So, and a lot of our members are working in that space too. So it's great. I had one more question from Edward to get you guys out of here. Can storage batteries be manufactured using exclusively stored energy from renewables?
Yes. And I think Canada is beautifully situated. I mean, we have the mining capacity. They're making batteries now without cobalt. I mean, there are challenges, as James pointed out, but we could be, the a big EV player in the world. We can also source to North America. The Americans don't have the resources that Canada has in terms of the materials going into these cars and these batteries. And so I think there's a big opportunity to really integrate this and really deliver the value, the total value to this industry, as opposed to, we've always just sold our raw resources, right, and haven't used them. And it's time that we take our natural resources and add value to them everywhere, whether it's timber, whether it's minerals, whether it's, we don't do a lot of refining in even in our oil and gas industries. We've got to do more. And so I think Canada has a big opportunity. We are, one of the richest and wealthiest countries in the world in terms of, the water, minerals, and agriculture and forestry. It's just amazing. This is our time, and we got to go for it. But we need people to go for it.
Yeah, great messages. So thanks so much, Annette and James. Really appreciate the presentation and the questions. If you're able to stick around past 8 there, and we'll have a little bit of follow-up questions. I know there's a couple other questions coming into chat, so if you don't mind sticking around, we'll have about a half hour for some follow-up. But I do want to bring on our next speaker. So thanks again to James and Annette, and now I want to bring on Mahmoud Shirazi. So let me just bring up my my introduction. So Mahmoud is from Ecology Solutions, and under his leadership, it is expanding quickly from a technology startup to a serious player in the battery technology market. Mahmoud obtained his PhD from University de Sherbrooke in thermal fluids, heat pipes, and thermal management. His research work has led to multiple research awards. He has also authored journal articles and several patent applications. He completed his business training at the University de Sherbrooke Business School in order to anchor his passion for entrepreneurship and business. So welcome, Mahmoud, to Green Drinks. Thanks again for joining us.
Yes, hi Nick. Hello everyone. Thanks for having me. So first, do you hear me well?
Yeah, you're coming through great.
Okay, great. So yeah, thanks a lot. Let me share my screen with you. All right,
And we're seeing that. That's great. Thanks again, Mahmoud.
great. Okay, so thanks again for having me. Let me just start by saying that Calogy Solutions is a company to commercialize a thermal management for electric vehicles. So some quick facts about Calogy Solutions. We have 4 patents received pending under preparation. We are a team of over 10 people, employees, and interns, and we have received up to now 1.5 million investments and grants. So here in the picture, you see an example of a vehicle that for which we worked with a partner to install our thermal management technology in the battery pack. We tested it in Quebec in winter. Of course, we can say that by looking at the snow here. And it worked pretty well. And now we're testing another vehicle that's also working very well. So our story, I thought it would be fun, because we're a startup, to give you some idea of how we started. So Calogy was a company spin-off from University of Sherbrooke. So the core technology was developed during my PhD with my supervisor at the time and my partner now, Luc Frichet. We are working together today in Calogy Solutions. So in 2019, September 2019, I left the university. I started working in Calogy as employee number 1. Today, as I said, we are around 10 employees. From September to almost today, I would say, we have been really working on product development and building these strategic partnerships. We were also selected as one of the 5 finalists in the Charging the Future competition by the federal government. So that was a great, great opportunity. We have 2 vehicles on road tests and one truck and 1 electric bus. Of course, we didn't make them. We worked with a partner to integrate our thermal management. And as of today, we are starting our commercialization of the first product. So we're doing that, preparing basically our campaign. So the awards, I mentioned already, Charging the Future Challenge. For that award, we received $700,000 to build a prototype, basically a battery pack with a partner for cold conditions. And we are running for a $1 million award along with 4 other partners. We are also part of the Sustainable Technology Development Canada, STDC. So we were among the 17 companies in Canada. We were in the first round of their seed investment in the companies. So that's also very valuable for us. We were also mentioned in the news several times. So, one interesting story was that employees number 2 and 3 were employed right, I think, the week before starting the COVID shutdowns. So, and at the time we were at the university, we were using the university facilities. So we said, okay, what do we do? One of the employees, one of the guys said, okay, you can use my garage. And we took everything in his garage. His girlfriend was really nice to us. She let us actually, install our equipments there. And we worked for I think 8 or 9 months in his garage. And, it worked pretty well. We had everything, and we took all the equipments and stuff. So that was fun. Then that was a great example we were mentioned for that. Also, the model that you have developed for welcoming and having the interns actually was so effective, so much effective, and the interns loved it. We took advantage of it. So we were mentioned by the Sherbrooke University as a model for other companies to have interns. And we have been also mentioned a few times in news and other outlets. So for this event, I thought just give you just a quick crash course on the batteries. You know that probably already, but just in case someone doesn't know. So basically, lithium-ion batteries they operate by transferring. When they operate, basically what happens is that ions are transferred from anode to the cathode. and basically electrons are going through and then the electrons can go through an external circuit, and that electron basically is electricity. So what's interesting is that anodes are typically today made of graphite, so carbon basically, and the cathode is the part that everyone focuses on, and cathode is the part that is typically you see about cobalt and all these other materials. They're all in cathode. Another development is that people typically now for anode they try really to replace graphite with silicium, because it's working very well, and more and more we're seeing more and more silicium in the anode part, because it can really increase the capacity of the battery pack. So that's this part. Another important distinction is basically the physical form of the cells. So typically lithium-ion batteries, they're either in cylindrical, like what you see here, cylindrical cells, or a pouch, like what you see here, like a sack, basically plastic sack, or prismatic, which are basically like rectangles that you can put in your battery pack. The differences here you can see cylindrical versus pouch. So cylindricals are almost in all aspects superior to pouches, except for the cycle life. The cycle life, pouches are much better. Another great advantage from what we have seen is the standardization of the size. So cylindrical cells, you've heard about 18650 size, or 21700 is another size. So basically, you have a standard size and you can use it in your battery pack. But at least for now, pouch and prismatic cells, they don't have a standard size. So each manufacturer comes up with its own design. Another important point to learn is basically the way that people use to call these different elements in a battery pack. So we typically have three levels. So either cell, module, or pack. And you can see here the distinction. Cells, of course, are clear. When you put multiple cells together, you call it a module. And when you put module in a large box, with a big master BMS, battery management system, then that would become your becomes your pack. In terms of the battery types, it's important to notice that batteries can be either high power or high energy, but they cannot be both at the same time. So high power cells are typically used in applications like handheld tools, for example, in which you need a peak power in a very short time. But energy cells, they're typically very limited in terms of the maximum energy, maximum current that you can take from them. But they last. They can store much more energy over time, which is interesting for applications like EVs and other electric transport applications. One important point to notice is that lithium-ion cells generate heat when they operate, and the heat is very important in all these four aspects that you see here. So in terms of safety, first of all, you all have seen, the horror stories that you have heard about EVs catching fire. Heat is very important. That's one of the main reasons. So basically, temperature in the battery pack increases, and what the phenomenon that we call a thermal runaway happens. So very, very uncontrolled heat and gases that are generated, and the vehicle catches fire. Range anxiety is another aspect, is another main difficulty in EVs, especially in winter conditions. If any of you have an EV, you know that range can decrease by up to 50% in winter conditions. Again, temperature and heating the cell is another issue. In terms of price, it's interesting to know that currently EV manufacturers actually over-design the battery pack. They do that because, so basically they put more cells than necessary, because to compensate for the aging, cell aging and the degradation that happens over time. So basically, if we can decrease the aging and cell degradation over time, we can decrease the amount of the extra cells, and that can decrease the cost. And finally, of course, fast charging. Everyone would like to have fast charging, charge their batteries, under an hour or 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So that's another issue. And all of these important features, they depend on temperature in a way in a battery pack. So what we have developed, and we believe that can address all 4 challenges, we call it thermal ground plane, or TGP. So here you can see the concept basically. What we see here is a simplified, casing for a battery pack. So the blocks that you see here, you can imagine them as prismatic cells, like rectangles, or multiple cylindrical cells that are put, vertically in the plane, and they're put on the surface of these thermal ground planes. So these TGPs basically are like thin sheets, metallic sheets that enter between the cells. They absorb heat, bring it up to this area that's in contact with the liquid cooling plate, and they transfer heat to the liquid cooling plate. Now, how do they work? Basically, it's the same concept as heat pipe. So liquid vapor phase change. Inside the heat pipe, you have this metallic sheet. You have the porous material here, which is like a sponge, and few drops of water inside the porous material. Water is the best heat transfer material, liquid, by the way. So the heat that's generated in the cells passes through the wall, evaporates the water that's inside the wick, and the vapor, the area that you see here, is actually vapor core. So there's no material; it's just the space. So the vapor goes up to the condenser side here, and the condenser side, the same thing. I mean, the reverse cycle happens. So it condenses, dissipates the heat to the ambient, and liquid, because of the capillarity, like a sponge, goes back to the evaporator. So it creates this closed cycle, liquid vapor phase change cycle, that is very, very effective for heat transfer. So the thickness is 1 to 2.5 millimeter. Of course, people want this as thin as possible. Right now, we are at 2.5 millimeter, but we are aiming for 1 millimeter. Our material is 95% aluminum, just 10% copper. Thermal conductivity is like 2,000 to 10,000 watts per meter Kelvin. So I can tell you it's like compared with copper, which is 400 watts per meter Kelvin, you're like 10 times better than copper. So it's a very, very effective material for heat transfer. And if you're interested to know more how it works, there is this video on Vimo. So just search for Calogy Solutions. You can see how it works. So it's an animation. So in terms of the benefits, technical benefits, basically, in terms of thermal performance, it can create a very uniform temperature for the cells. That's very important for cell lifetime. Typically, what's recommended is a delta T in the battery pack less than 5 degrees. In tests that we have done, we have reached less than 3 degrees. So it's very, very good for temperature uniformity. It's a very efficient cooling and heating system. So by the way, you can use this TGP for both heating and cooling. TGP is just a means to bring the heat from the cell level to the module level, right? So at the module level, you still need your air cooling, your liquid cooling to dissipate the heat to the ambient. And there you can actually put a heat source and then do the reverse cycle for heating the packs, the batteries. In terms of safety, it's interesting because there is no liquid flowing in the pack. As I said, it's just only a few drops. And even if you cut open a TGP, all the liquid is stuck in the porous material like a sponge, so it doesn't pour out of the TGP. That's very interesting. You can make a sealed battery pack. You don't need any port for typical solution of thermal management in the batteries, which is like putting a cold plate or heat exchanger with entrance and exit for a liquid. You don't need that. So everything can be, the thermal management can be integrated in the battery pack, and the battery pack can be actually modular. So that's very interesting. And that's interesting because in terms of in terms of a thermal runaway or thermal events, basically, everything is contained in the pack. So it's very safe. And finally, for integration, it's very useful because you can make actually swappable modules with thermal management integrated inside it. So you can easily charge your battery pack, take it out, put another one, because thermal management is integrated. You don't have any port or any entrance and exit for the liquid. That's typically the solution in the battery packs. What we do, which is different compared with heat pipes in the market, is a low-cost method that we have developed for large area coverage, and also the flexible form factor, so it can be bent. That's very useful for basically battery thermal management. So the value propositions of our technology, as I said, for safety, we can offer these sealed battery packs in case of thermal runaway. So a customer can make a sealed battery pack. From what we have seen, it's very interesting for customers who make battery packs for marine applications, for electric boats or electric aircrafts. Extremely important for them. Range anxiety, we have done some numbers and some tests, and we have noticed that because we provide a very uniform temperature in the pack in winter conditions, actually that decreases the amount of electricity that's used in EVs to heat the battery pack, and that can have an impact direct on the driving range of the EV. In terms of the cost, because we can increase the lifetime by providing a uniform temperature. First of all, our estimations show that we can increase the lifetime by 2 years. And also that leads to a reduction in the cost because your cells will last longer, so you don't need to over-design your pack. So another 5 to 10% economy in the cost. For fast charging also, because you can control very effectively the temperature, cooling and heating, that's also very, very helpful elements to make fast charging possible. Here is an example of the integration of the TGPs in a battery pack. For cylindrical cells, here you see a bunch of cylindrical cells, blue ones, and they're sitting on a TGP surface. The TGP is in contact with a wall. You know, that wall is battery casing, basically. And on the other side, you have your, either in this case, basically your liquid cold plate, or here below that, you have your air-cooled heatsink. So you can use TGPs with both cylindrical cells, prismatic cells, with cold plate, and with air-cooled systems. Here you see an example of the temperature uniformity. So the left, what you see here is a basically module made of PCM. The circles that you see here are cylindrical cells inside the PCM module. This is an example of a simulation just with passive cooling with PCM, phase change material. So just to explain to you, PCM material is a material that actually, well, as the name says, it changes the phase. It's a solid, basically. It's like a wax material. So from solid becomes a liquid. And the problem with this material is that it's just a reservoir. So in short term, it works, but then it's saturated, it stops working because, you know, all the phase change has been done. So here you see the temperature rises to 64 degrees with a, you know, large delta T. But here using TGPs on the backside. So in this design, we put the TGPs on the backside, as we saw in the previous slide, to transfer the heat to the ambient. And, you know, delta T is just 0.7 degrees, and the maximum temperature is 30 degrees. So we can control the maximum temperature and also temperature uniformity. Another technology that we have developed, and, you know, we have submitted a patent, is a concept that we call thermal switch. So what we noticed was that in winter conditions, basically, imagine you want to heat your house. What you do, you close all the windows, all the doors, and then turn on your heating system, right? You want to do the same thing in a battery. So you want to put thermal insulation around the battery pack, and then turn on the heater in the battery pack to keep the battery packs in the required temperature range of 20 to 35 degrees. But that's not the reality, because if you put thermal insulation, then in summer, when you want to cool down the pack, the temperatures will rise very drastically, and you cannot control the temperature. Now, the solution that we thought is basically this solution. So this is a thermal switch. So TGP actually brings the heat to this surface here. And the switch, it's a passive system, basically like a, physically separates the TGP from the external wall. The heat cannot leave the battery pack, and all the other walls are thermally insulated. In summer conditions, when the temperature starts to rise, basically, the switch creates the contact between the TGP and the wall, so closes the breach, and the heat in that case can pass through the wall and can be dissipated. So it's a passive system, and we have tested it. I think we're now in the 6th iteration of the design. It still is far away from being a product, but the concept is working very, very interesting, very, very well up to now. In terms of the product that we have our TGP, so Gen 0 and Gen 1. Gen 0 is the one that you just saw. Gen 1 is a second generation we're working on that's basically lighter, has higher performance, cheaper. So in every aspect, better than the Gen 0 that we have right now. We're working on our cold plates basically to put it to work in basically in parallel with TGP. We're working on our thermal switch. And we're also working on a battery pack based on the technologies that we have developed, thermal management, and also BMS control of the battery pack. We are working with many companies, basically we're discussing with them, presenting the technology to them. We're working with a tier 1 cell manufacturer in South Korea. We have submitted a joint R&D project with a South Korean company. They are a pack assembler, and we want to integrate our technology into their battery pack. In Canada, we're working with a large electric bus manufacturer. We're actually participating in the project Arrow, so that's the 100% Canadian EV. A few big names in the aircraft, basically all of them for thermal management. Also stationary energy storage system. So we're working with a big Quebec based, because this technology is as useful as is very useful also in stationary systems as in the EVs. For us, it was interesting. We didn't know that. And for ESS or stationary energy storage systems, the challenge is that they are installing like gigawatts of battery pack. So if they can increase the lifetime for 1 or 2 years, that's huge savings for them. So that's the interest for the companies that we're discussing with. And also for battery pack, we're developing a small battery pack using our thermal management technology with a partner to basically showcase how you can use the TGP. These are the two vehicles that this one on top is basically is a vehicle that is currently being tested by the city of Montreal, and it's working well up to now. And the second one here is basically an example for which we had our first sales, and they're gonna install the TGPs in 2 vehicles of this type, to show the performance. In terms of market potential, I think we all know that EVs are the future of transportation. So here are just the numbers for electric bus. Here you see an example for electric bus. And just to look at the numbers quickly, just electric buses, there is a potential $130 million for battery thermal management for us as a basically serviceable, obtainable market. So the potential is huge, and that's just for electric buses. Now you have trucks, you have passengers, all other sectors. Our typical customers are a mature EV manufacturers. So mature in the sense that they have their own battery fabrication facility, or they have control over the battery pack design, or pack assemblers. So the companies that make battery packs for other companies. In terms of persona, of course, we should first talk with a battery pack engineer or designer, ideally working on a new or improved battery pack, because that's the time that we can present our technology. And then, of course, we have to talk to the purchasing people. Up to now, we have done a lot of market validation. So there was a market study company who did an independent study on the technology. They did 23 interviews with companies, small companies up to names like Tesla. So that was interesting because Tesla engineer gave us 9 out of 10. And Tesla has one of the best thermal management technologies in the world. So that was interesting. We have had some sales. We're doing submitting a joint project, $1.6 million with a South Korean company. We have had sent samples to the largest battery pack manufacturer for the marine applications in Norway. So they're testing them now. And as I said, we have been talking to many, many more potential partners. The way we work is that we work by first working with customers for integration of our technology, because we need to show them how to integrate this technology. It's a new way of battery thermal management. So we talk with them, we do some simulations, models, we look at the numbers, and we give some suggestions. And then for low to moderate volume, manufacture the parts here in Sherbrooke, Quebec, and then we sell them the parts. But for higher volume, for passengers, for which you have to produce millions of units per year, that will just license the technology. We won't do that because it's too complicated. So yeah, that was my presentation, and thanks a lot for the time. If you have any questions, well, please ask.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mahmoud. Great presentation. Nice to hear about all the amazing stuff you're up to, and nice to hear that you had that garage start, and great for taking us through that, and we're able to see the origins of the startup there. So that's fabulous. Luca did have one technical question here. How is the heat pump protected from collapsing due to flex in the frame of the vehicle or from rough terrain? Is this all handled by the casing?
Yeah, that's a good question. So basically, pouch cells, when they operate, they actually swell. So when we put the TGPs between them, actually, they create kind of this physical pressure on the cells, on the TGPs, and they are put in place. Otherwise, it's casing, actually. You put the TGPs inside the casing. They're like all other parts inside the battery pack and protected by the casing.
That's great, and invite anybody to add any questions into chat. I was curious as to how far do you think that the range in electric vehicles can go? Can we break the 1,000-kilometer mark, or what are you thinking that we can look at for future development there?
I think everything is possible. I mean, honestly, I think we'll definitely get there, because especially now, because there is market pull. So market pull is very important. People want EVs. They have seen their impact during the COVID. So now, big industries, big names are putting billions of dollars. So I'm sure it's just a matter of time before we have that.
That's great. I know a lot of EV enthusiasts on the call here will be happy to hear that. So Art Hunter's just wondering, have you considered other heat pipe working fluids besides water?
Actually, there are currently some aluminum TGPs using acetone, but people don't like to have acetone inside a battery pack. Obviously, it's a flammable liquid. In terms of thermal properties, water is the best liquid because it has the highest heat of evaporation. So for a fixed mass, you can transfer the highest amount of heat energy. Also, it has a very low viscosity, so it creates less pressure drop, high surface tension also at the same time. So it's a good material for capillarity. All in all, that's the best scenario, and of course the cost. So all in all, that's the best material.
That's great. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about the NRCan Breakthrough Grant. I know you guys were one of the finalists. So talk to us a little bit about the process of that grant and where you're at with everything and how that's helped you along.
Yeah, that grant was, I would say, was really critical in the growth of our company. Because for a startup, 700,000 grant is huge. So the proposal writing that, I would say, was excruciating. So a lot of work on my side. What I put in the proposal was the ideas that we had for a long time, but we never had the means to do that. So like there were some ideas like using AI for basically evaluating the battery aging. So that we are doing, and it's working very well. Of course, we're not doing it in the company. We work with researchers in the university for that part, but that's working very well. So the switch was another idea that we are making it now. TGP also development of that. and basically, putting that in a cold plate, putting that in conjunction with the cold plate. All of them were possible because of that grant. I mean, people that we have hired, I mean, until recently, they were just we were just paying them using that grant. So I would say extremely important and useful for us, and I appreciate they gave us the chance.
Oh, that's great, and congratulations on receiving that. My next question is kind of similar. I'm wondering, how have you found being a startup in Canada and Quebec? Have you received a wide variety of support? I mean, is it something that you're sort of struggling, or you're feeling like there's a lot of support out there for startups like you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, and I think I'm in a good position to answer that, because we are right now in a investment round, basically. Funding round. I think the big difference, I mean, I've never worked in the US or Silicon Valley, but I read about the battery startups. I think what we lack in here is mostly kind of patience and sometimes vision from the investors. So they're not kind of used to products that takes time. For example, if you look at Quantum Escape, it's like I think their evaluation is now $15 billion, but it's 10 years that they're still in R&D, and they say they won't have a product until the next 3-4 years. So and that's all been funded by investors. Such a thing is impossible to imagine in Canada. I mean, after the first year, after the first investment, they ask you to have sales. You should just go to market, which is not bad, at the same time. But I think, especially in hardware, deep tech, as they say, investors should be patient. I think in terms of public support, I think we were lucky. I really cannot complain, because we got the NRCan funding. But I think it's mostly the vision from the private investors and VCs, and that part, especially in the beginning, because the beginning, the seed money, you don't have traction, you don't have a team, so it's hard to find that money. As you move ahead, it becomes easier, because you have things to show, and you have hopefully some market traction, so people get on board easier. But initially, I think we need more support in the initial phase of a startup.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we're hearing from a lot of our members as well. So I know you sort of had a few different slides on where you're going and some of the projects you're working on. I think the Project Arrow is great. I've been kind of following that a little bit. So nice to see you're involved in that. Tell us a little bit about what your vision is of the next 5 or 10 years for Kalogi. Where do you see this going, and what's your giant vision for the company?
Yeah. So I think we can be an important part of the role that Canada would like to play in the EV markets, so battery market. I really think that we have here in Canada a huge potential for being an important player, because we have the raw material, we have the expertise in terms of the R&D. What we are lacking is having access to big markets. So, working with the US is very important. The other thing is basically lack of, I would say, vision for these big investments that's required for battery manufacturing, because it's a very capex intensive activity. So I see us as an important part of that ecosystem. And we see that, because we're working with companies here in Quebec. Now I want to approach actually organizations to work in Ontario. So I would like Kalogi to be an important player in battery thermal management, and ideally, if we can, also in battery pack manufacturing, because we have the thermal management, we have expertise, we're developing expertise in BMS. All it remains is just buying the cells, putting them together, get the certifications, and have a product. So I would really like us to go to that direction. But before getting there, I think we have really milestones to reach.
Well, that's fabulous. Thanks so much again for taking us through your journey, and really exciting to hear about all the projects you're working on all the innovation that you're kind of creating too. So that's great. I really appreciate that. So for the remaining time, unfortunately, our member JP was not able to join us. So for the remaining time, we'll kind of open it up for any follow-up questions. The way that will work is if you do have a follow-up question, you can raise your hand and I can unmute you. Annette, I know you were chatting a little bit in chat about some challenges for Canadian companies. Did you want to talk a little bit about that before we go into the follow-up?
Yeah, I think, and I've been talking to governments and private sector about this for a long time. We're a small market and we have 10 provinces and 3 territories with all separate regulations. And we don't have a tendency to take a risk on our own technologies, our own innovations. And particularly in industries like Mahmoud and I are in, because, well, I'm a developer, so I'm talking new technology, but I have the experience at Enerstor of building with Hydrostor, the first compressed air energy storage project. And so I know the challenges associated with this. And so people are more comfortable in investing in software companies or companies that don't require that long-term perspective. And that's a real problem we have in Canada. And because I think a lot of, the support programs that some of the federal and provincial governments are doing are supportive, but all the pieces aren't there. And to me, the biggest challenge is the market, creating the market for us. And we're chopping it up, man. We're killing ourselves. And so what's happened, and traditionally in our businesses is that we get bought out by the Americans when we reach 20 to 30 million valuations because we can't grow it bigger, faster here. And we're losing, right? And so I think procurement, and I saw, just a little example, Nick, when I was running Home Depot, I chaired the Environmental Council of Home Depot. And if you recall, in 1990, none of you recall, most of you weren't born, but in 1998, the Indigenous peoples in North America really pushed back on the way we were taking lumber from the forests throughout Canada and throughout the world. And so I saw the power of procurement. So I talked to our merchants and I said, let's go to all of our vendors and say, look, within 2 years, if you don't have an independent certification of the woodland of best or good forest management practices, we're not going to buy from you. So we use the purchasing power of that company to change the way we managed our forests around the world. So I know the power. I know the power of the private sector. I know the power of government, but we do not. We buy for everything cheap. And often everything cheap is the most expensive things that we do in our country. And we don't understand the sustainability aspect. We don't understand the impact of that product being shit and having to go into the, into recycling mode or into, that's one of our problems. And so I love Canada. I've worked in China. I've worked in the United States, but I've always done it from Canada. But I wish we were bigger risk takers. I wish we bet on our own more. That is my big wish. And I'll tell you, we could change the way we grow our businesses and scale up our businesses, and we would have hundreds of unicorns and narwhals, as I like to call them, in our country. But we resist for some reason, and we need to change that.
Yeah, good points, Annette. I think that's really important to understand, is that that's what spurs innovation and also holds it back a little bit too. And I think sometimes we wait to see that things are successful in other places and then adopt them in Canada instead of the other way around, right?
Right. That's right. That's right.
Great to hear the work you've been doing, not only with Enerstor, but also over at Home Depot as well. So that's great. Brent, I do see your hand up, so we'll get to you in a sec. I had another question from Art Hunter a little earlier. He's wondering, could the speaker say something on V2G technology advancing in Canada? And maybe we can go over to Mahmoud, and then we'll head over to James and Annette after. V2G technology. Did you have anything to say on that, Mahmoud?
To be honest with you, that's not my expertise. I haven't looked at that scientifically in any detail. But from what I understand, I think there is a potential, there is a possibility to do that. And I think it should be, because think about it. I mean, in 10 years from now, you'll have all these EVs, and all these EVs should be charged. So all of them, you need a huge infrastructure for generating electricity. I mean, in Canada, we're lucky. I mean, we have, we have all the natural resources. We have all the water and dams to generate electricity. But that's not the case in other places in the world. So I think all these vehicles, actually, they carry huge amounts of energy. So if there is an opportunity to use them, I think it just makes total sense to connect them to the grid. Now, there are technical challenges. For that, I'm sure that we should develop some solutions, but logically, I think that's a great idea and we should do it.
James, do you want me to take that? Look, I think we should, it's going to happen. It's definitely going to happen. And I think there are challenges, there are big barriers, but there were big barriers in developing the technologies that we're describing, in our presentations today. Look, aggregating all these batteries, and filling them up at night when there is all this excess wind and energy on our systems. And it absolutely needs to happen, and it will happen. And there's a lot of companies that are working really aggressively in this area. I think in the next 10 years, this is going to happen. I really do.
Art, did you want to ask any follow-ups with that? You should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you for asking. Just let me say at the beginning here that I have 3 Powerwall batteries in the house, and I've had that for 4 years now. And I have, and that represents 40 kilowatt hours of storage. I have also a Tesla Model 3 with another 80 kilowatt hours of storage. And of course, I'm keenly interested in having 120 kilowatt hours of storage, which I can play with. I fully appreciate, and I guess I've built up a certain amount of expertise over these years on how to use that storage, rather than only as you're suggesting that you save it when the sun is shining, and so when the sun isn't shining, that's obvious. But how do you do that really?
Yeah.
And so my interest is really built around moving this forward. You saying, well, it's going to happen in 10 years. Well, yeah, I don't think we got the time, quite frankly.
Art, and a lot of this, as you know, Art, is because of the regulatory, environments that we're in. Some of the markets are merchant markets in Canada, some are not. The restrictions, if you're in Ontario, if you have solar energy, you have to sell it to the grid. It is complicated. They've made it very difficult, but the demand is going to become so great, particularly when these EVs really take off, that the customer is going to win, Art, in the end. I saw that at Home Depot. I brought Michael's to Canada. The customer will win, because the demands are going to become much greater and greater. And I just see, if anything this pandemic has done, it has made us, oh my God, so much more aware of climate change and the fact that we individually have got to do a lot of work towards it. But Art, there is no question, it's one of the most frustrating things in the world for me, being in this business, trying to make it easier for the customers to grab and produce their own energy, store their own energy, and use it effectively. We're not there yet, but I believe that it's going to happen.
Good.
And
Thank you.
just to add to, V2G is really promising. Some of my master's research, actually, we talked about V2X, where X could be anything, a home, a building,
Yeah.
A neighborhood, right? So V2G is the ultimate goal, right? And would require tons of infrastructural and technological changes. But Annette's right too on the regulation side. Even figuring out remuneration, how that would play out between EV owners and utilities and system operators that could become very complicated. And liability, cybersecurity, these are very challenging obstacles to V2X technology, on top of the bidirectional chargers that would need to be installed and so forth. But a very promising opportunity. I was just reading here that a lot of cars spend 90% of their lifetime parked. So you have just a whole fleet of just batteries, basically, that can be, their value can be captured. But it's just about that practical nature. How do we overcome all those barriers to realize those opportunities?
Yeah, I know that California is addressing this, and New York is as well.
Yeah.
And they're struggling with all the items which you've mentioned. Yes.
Yeah, they are, Art. Yeah. But if it were easy, everybody would be doing it.
There you go. So I know Mahmoud's got to take off to head to Montreal, so I just wanted to give him a chance for some final words. Brent, I haven't forgotten about you. We'll roll back to your question later. If anybody else wants to join the discussion, please put your hand up and you'll pop to the top of my screen. Mahmoud, over to you for some final words, and then we'll have a couple more questions. Thanks again for joining.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks everyone for this opportunity. It was great, having the chance to talk with you guys. Especially, I would like to say, Annette and your company. I mean, you guys started in 2012. I cannot imagine what you went through to convince people. Unbelievable. We are in 2021. Everyone is crazy about EVs, and we're still dealing with, sometimes conservative investors. Now in 2012, I mean, my God, bravo.
Yep.
Anyways,
we survived. We found another way to get up the mountain every time. And,
yeah. I mean, I'm going through this, and guys, you need to be tough. I mean, this lady here is tough. I can say that.
Yes, you can. Well,
yeah. Anyways, I have to head back. I'm in Sherbrooke now. I have to head back to Montreal. 1.5 hour drive. So sorry, I have to leave sooner. And it was great speaking with you guys. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thanks for the Habs. You gave us great hope.
Yeah.
I know you didn't win, but man, you impressed Canada.
Yeah, we tried hard.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Thanks again, Mahmoud. Enjoy the drive, hopefully in an EV and with enough range, right, to get to Montreal.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
Bye, guys.
Brent's been waiting patiently. Brent, I'm going to get you to unmute. And if you want to bring your camera on, you can ask your question.
Sure. Okay. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm interested in if anybody has any knowledge of the Greener Homes grant, and this specifically related to the battery option. I'm looking at it right now, and all it says in the grant is that batteries connected to photovoltaic systems to provide standby power for homes. I've tried contacting NRCan. I've been waiting for 3 weeks for an answer. I don't know what this means. I'm just wondering if anybody has any knowledge. Is it has to be tied directly to the cells? Can it be a plug-in? What's the capacity? Does anybody have any knowledge beyond what that statement says?
Brent, the only thing I think, and James can help out, but I understand that the contribution of the battery can be up to $5,000. Is that right, James? Is that the number that I hear? But I assume that it integrates solar or doesn't, or it's just a standalone battery that provides resilience, in cases of power outages, etc. But I think a lot of the details of that program is not yet out. Like, I think they make these announcements, and I don't know if they think through all the details of them. So,
Yeah.
but do you know more, James?
Yeah, I'm looking at the wording too here, and it's quite vague.
It's vague.
Eligible for reimbursement for a portion of the cost of the installation of batteries
Yeah.
to store your solar. So it sounds like it might have to be tied to a solar related activity, but again, it's so vague. I'm not entirely sure if it could just be for the battery itself.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, as I said, I've been waiting for literally 3 weeks. I left a message. I've been waiting for 3 weeks, and they said, that's the normal queue. Just stand by and wait for an answer. So if I get anything, I will try and relate it to this group.
Yeah. And if we find out, Brent, we'll let you know. I'm sure we'll find out at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we're hearing about some delays with that grant and stuff, but keep with it and definitely let us know, and hopefully you can pop on the next Green Drinks in August and give us an update on that as well. So if anybody else has any questions, definitely raise your hand. I wanted to sort of ask a bit more of a general question, and to Annette and James, I was wondering, what advances in battery technology do you expect to see in the next, let's say, 10 to 20 years? Are we going to see smaller batteries? Are we going to see more storage? Are we going to see more, really inexpensive batteries? Is it all of the above? A few words on the what you expect to see. Maybe we'll go to James and then we'll go to Annette.
Yeah, well, first of all, the volume capacity and the pricing of the batteries continuing to fall. That will be very exciting in terms of building even better business cases for grid energy storage moving forward. I'm also very keen to see maximum cycle count increase as well. And this will play a big role in the overall longevity and operational sort of costs associated with running these systems as well. And then finally, the materials and the recycling piece as well, really reducing the overall total footprint and intensity that is required of harnessing a lot of these minerals that can be controversial, that can have a lot of impact. So minimizing those impacts, but also having very solid and established avenues for those batteries, for those materials to return back into the supply, so that we can continue basically build a circular economy there.
Yeah, I think a battery today it's 95% recyclable, but we should be eventually getting all these metals from a recycled environment. Recognizing, as one of the people just said, precious metals and where they stand. We have taken too much from the earth, all around, everywhere, and so now the things that we take need to be sustained, and things given back to it. But I see, Jeff Don's a great friend of mine, and he works for Tesla research at the Dalhousie University. He'd be an interesting guy for you to have, Nick, on this session. But he's very knowledgeable. I hope the density, and we're working with Tesla on mega packs, and they keep upgrading the density and the life of these products. And like I have a Tesla sedan, and the life of the batteries are 8 years, right? But they're going to become longer, and the way that they're moving in that direction, I think, is really critical. I see energy storage being a bridge to hydrogen, to other technologies that are out there, like small nuclear. This technology is ready now. In California, for instance, they're not allowing any more renewable energy without battery technology, without storage technology, not necessarily battery, but storage technology. And so you're going to see that movement happen, right? And And so I think battery technology is a great bridge, and there is more and better technologies out there with different metals, with different products that and flow batteries. But as James said, the cost curve is going down significantly, and that's the key. We have to beat the fossil fuel costs, the generation of fossil fuels, and we are at renewable as well. So think of the opportunity we have to get off fossil fuels and to improve the electrification of everything we do, because that's where it starts. If we can, 80% of the electric grid in Canada is clean energy, right? And some people would argue is nuclear energy clean energy, but perceived to be clean. But let's get it to 100%, because then manufacturing operations like steel making and cement building and all that stuff will improve. Yes, there is a cost disadvantage, today in terms of gas generation, and understood and get it. But as carbon pricing, $170 in 2030. That's a lot of additional money, you guys, to be impacting on that asset that you've invested in trying to retain. So it's it is a pricing mechanism that I think will change the way we build and change the way we improve. But I just see life cycle. Jeff is working on a 50-year battery. That's his objective.
Wow.
A life of 50 years.
Great. No, great to hear vision in it, and thanks for sharing that. I think we had one more question from Randy, and then we'll maybe hear some final thoughts. Randy, go ahead with your question.
Sure. I hope my audio is good. I mean, Annette kind of started to address this a bit, but as far as like the minerals and components that go into the batteries and the supply that we need to produce the batteries that are in demand, and that are the demand obviously growing with electric vehicles being produced more and storage being produced more. What I mentioned in the comments was that I actually have Tesla stock, and I sit in on the investor calls. And a couple of quarters ago, Elon Musk was practically begging nickel producers to make more nickel, even in the short term. And of course, there's concerns about cobalt in the Congo and things like that, which I know is being reduced for the need, but there's still obviously all the big automakers are starting to make EVs, and the storage needs. So yeah, just your take on the battery component supplies.
Look, it is an issue, and I, as I say, we need to recycle this product so that supply chain can be regenerated. There's batteries. Most batteries that are in cars or anywhere, have an enormous life left, and so we are wasting everywhere. And so I think we need to look through this lens of a real circular opportunity. So I do understand this is a significant issue, but there are also technologies, Randy, being developed that aren't nickel, aren't cobalt. There's salt. There's all kinds of different chemistries that are going into, and I think we're going to get more sustainable and continue. So if we keep thinking through this as a lens of sustainability and circular economy, we'll get there. But look, one of the real cool, this project that we're working on is $500 million, right? And so one of the things that's really important to Six Nations of the Grand River and to EnerStore is how these cells are going to be recycled, and we are making enormous investment in what this looks like during its operation and when it's complete. And these are the ways we need to think about our projects, how they impact the environment. And the Indigenous people, I think, are teaching us a lot, and we need to learn more. They think in the longer term than we do. And I think that will give us great returns if we become better listeners in our country.
Yeah, great points. We had another question from Lama around those lines as well. She's wondering, what about the second life batteries market and the recycling of batteries market?
Yeah, I think it's big. The two big companies in Canada, Li-Cycle. The name of the company in Quebec is Lithium, I think, is the name of the company. Big opportunities. As a matter of fact, the Canadian company Li-Cycle is testing its bigger manufacturing facility in the United States because he couldn't get it done in Canada. I could shoot myself. But Li-Cycle is the name of the company, and they are they're recycling not only car batteries, but all batteries. Like, I always say, when I started at Home Depot, everything was plugged in, electrical. When I left Home Depot, everything was a battery. And think of that in itself. You don't pick up, a drill or anything that's not battery associated. So all that, has happened in the last 10 years as well. And so this has caused the supply chain to be challenged, and it needs to be thought through and replenished. And I hope the replenishment comes from existing recycling of products. That's where it has to come from.
Yeah, great points. It's important to look at that and see where those batteries are going, and make sure we get that next 5% to make sure it's 100% recyclable. So no, some great answers there. So I want to open up for some final words. James, did you want to jump in for some final words, and then maybe we'll hear a bit from Annette?
Yeah. Well, totally. It was great. It was my pleasure to be with y'all today and to share some insight on the work that we're doing here at NSTOR. It's a great privilege to be working with people like Annette. We have a very talented team that I just every single day I'm very impressed with the performance and everything, that all the aspirations basically and hopes that we are actually accomplishing. I will also make it a little bit more personal, I guess, to as I was alluding to in my presentation. This work is so much more important than just the technology and the exciting business potential and all of that, but it's also about climate action, meaningful climate action, really trying to get towards that less than 2 degree target. Again, I'm very hopeful. We got to do the work, and we got to think of innovative ways to do so with technology like lithium-ion batteries, but also on the practical side, on how we actually commercialize and realize these things through partnerships, through equitable and meaningful and authentic partnerships. Long overdue, of course, but here we are, and we have an opportunity in front of us that I'm very, very excited to be working again with NSTOR, with Annette and team, to get Oneida ready and developed. It's a very exciting endeavor, and I'm just really, really happy to be a part of it. So thank you for giving me the platform to share that with y'all. And of course, if you want to connect, you can find me on LinkedIn, and we can chat more about the work that we're up to.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, James. Thanks for coming on and being a part of the event, and really, really great to connect, and glad Annette was able to join us too. Annette, some final words. You've been in the industry for quite a while now, so some final words about battery technologies and Canadian companies and where we see things going.
Well, I don't think I can say much more than James just said. He is an amazing representative of our company, and I'm so proud of him. And I'm so lucky to have people around me as strong as he is, and because he's going to create change, he's making change, he's doing things, and I think the message I want to leave is that battery technology is important, but so are other technologies. With the cooling systems that, what Mahood was just describing, there is so much technology happening and innovation happening in Canada, and it's going to take everything, and not all of them are going to win. Maybe 25, maybe 20% win. But if we don't get them all swimming, if we don't get it all working, you know, we're going to be on the other side of this and not going to have the economy and lifestyle that we want and we need. And so I am a very proud Canadian. I'm a Dutch immigrant. My parents are Dutch immigrants. And I came to Cape Breton. I started my career in the coal mining business. Do you believe that? Full circle in energy storage, ending my career. I'm not done yet. But look, it's a journey, and we need a lot of difficult problems to be solved. And the collective will of people in this country is really going to make a big difference. And so one thing Canada has is it's got some of the smartest, most talented people in the world. We got the highest educated populace in all of the world, and we need to do more with it.
Yeah, great final words. Thanks so much again for joining us, both Annette and James. Very inspirational. You know, great to hear about all the work you're doing. I know SmartNet Alliance is out there trying to connect those dots as well and create those partnerships. So, you know, fabulous to hear all that work you're doing. I want to thank everybody for their activity in chat as well. Randy and Art and Dawn and Raymond and Brent and Luca and everybody who's been in chat and active in there. Thanks so much. It's been a great addition. You know, I know it's the middle of summer, but it was great to see so many people on talking about battery storage and renewable technologies. Just a reminder, we're back in 5 weeks' time on August 12th. We'll be featuring the team from Ecology Ottawa, talking about climate action and all the amazing stuff they're doing. So go ahead and hit the link into chat and register for that one. And until then, I want to thank everybody again for joining us. This is Nick from SmartNet Alliance. And once again, it's been a fabulous virtual green drinks. And I want to wish you all a great night. Keep fighting the good fight, and let's transform and change this country one battery at a time.